This lecture is on the future indicative tense. The future tense means the same in Greek as it does in English. It describes an action or a state of being that is anticipated to occur at a future time. The future tense can be used in three ways in the Greek New Testament. It can be used in a predictive way. That is, it affirms that an action will happen or a state of being will come into being in the future. It is the simplest, most basic use of the future. Here's an example. Ekenos humas didaxin panta. He will teach you all things. There the verb is in the future. And it's predicting that at a future time, he, that is the Spirit, will teach you all things. The second use is imperatival. This use of the future is used in place of the imperative mood. So normally when commands or prohibitions are given, they're in another mood. They're in the imperative mood. We haven't learned that yet. We'll learn that in Greek too. But the future tense can be used to express a command. And when it's employed with a negative, it gives the idea of prohibition. So here's an example. Ou phonouses. Not you will murder. In this context, it's used as a command. You shall not kill. You shall not murder. There's the future of that verb. And finally, there's what's called the deliberative. This is used when a speaker is deliberating about an action that they're going to take. And it's used in real or rhetorical questions to get the thoughts of another person. It consults about the possibility, desirability, or necessity of a proposed action. So, ha petros apen auto, kuri prosakis hamartese eis eme, ha adelphos mu kai apheso auto. And it's a question. We could see that with that. Peter said to Jesus, Lord, how many times shall my brother sin against me, and how many times shall I forgive them? So this is a good English translation. Lord, if my brother or sister sins against me, how often or how many times should I forgive? So he's deliberating with Jesus over how often he should forgive a brother who sins against him. So again, deliberative, imperatival, and predictive uses of the future. I want to talk about the voice forms in Greek future. And when we're dealing with a verb who has a lexical form like luo, so that normal just lexical form with an omega on the end, we have active, a middle, and a passive form. So remember back, so far we've dealt with the present and the imperfect, and they had active, but their middle and passive forms were the same. In the future, we have different forms for all three of these voices. So luso, lusomai, and luthesomai. So we can see there's similarities here with the sigma and the active and the middle endings. Here there's a slight difference with this passive. It is a different kind of set of letters here, but middle endings. Active form, active meaning. The middle form here has middle meaning, and the passive form can be passive or middle depending on the context, depending on the verb. But if you have a lexical form like peruomai, and that's like, we're talking your middle-only verbs. These middle-only verbs can, in the future, have a middle form and can also have passive forms. And in both cases, they have the middle-only meaning. So perusomai and peruthesomai mean the same thing. I will go, I will go. So here's the paradigm of the future indicative, and it's very straightforward. So this is for like luo, right? The future of luo. You see that sigma there in between the verb stem and the ending. That's the one big difference between the future and the present. Other than that, you have the same endings. Omega, ace, a, amen, eta, usin. Okay? So the addition of the sigma is the one big difference that you're going to notice. You don't need to learn a new set of endings. You just need to note the presence of the sigma. So luso, luces, luce, lusamen, luceta, usin. The future middle, same thing. You have the sigma, but you have the middle endings that you've learned already. Lusomai, luce, lucetai, lus amatha, lus esta, lus ontai. And this has middle meaning. I will loose myself, or I will loose for myself. The future passive, it's a separate form that you have to be aware of. But it's straightforward too. You get lu, the verb stem, the addition of these three letters, a theta, an eta, and a sigma. That's the marker for the future passive. And you have the middle endings. Lu thesomai, lu these, lu thes etai, lu thes amatha, lu thes esta, lu thes ontai. And that's passive meaning I will be loosed. So again, not a huge learning curve. It's just noting the addition of this and middle endings. So I want to talk a little bit about the morphology, which I've already touched upon for the future indicative. In the active, you have the verb stem, plus this tense formative, which is a sigma, and the personal endings, which are the active endings. For the middle, you get the verb stem lu, you get a sigma, and you get a set of personal endings, which are the middle endings. And for the passive, you get the verb stem lu, and this tense formative theta, eta, sigma, and the middle endings. But there are some variations in form that you need to be aware of. First, some verb stems in certain consonants that change when they encounter a sigma. For instance, blepo, that pi collides with the sigma to create a psi. Now this makes sense when you think of it. These two letters, pi and sigma, really are the same sound as that letter psi. P and a pi and a sigma together. So that addition makes sense to me. It's basically taking two letters and representing it with one that makes the same sound. So that's the future form of blepo, blepso, with that psi. So here's a summary of these changes that take, and we have organized it according to the consonant type. Consonant type means the way that the sound is made in your mouth. So labials are sounds that are made primarily with your lips coming together. So p, pi, b, and f. Okay? When a pi, a beta, or a phi encounter sigma, they become a psi. So here's blepo becomes blepso, and grapho becomes graphso. Okay? You can see that's a situation where that sound that is made with the sigma really is best represented by that psi. The next are palatables, and these are kind of sounds that are made in the back of your throat, almost like a guttural sound. The palate of your mouth. K, g, and k. Okay, kappa, gamma, and chi. And these guys, when they form a sigma, they get together with an xi, okay, an xi. So dioko, dioxo, ago becomes exo, and alenxo becomes alenco becomes alenxo. Okay, so notice this again, it's this sound of the palatal come together with the sigma to create this unified letter here. And finally, dentals. Dentals are made when your tongue hits your teeth. So a t and a d and a th. A tau, a delta, and a theta. And when they hit the sigma, they just drop out of the way because it's hard to pronounce a dental and a sigma all at the same time. So the dental is dropped and you just get the sigma. So you get baptizo becomes baptizo, and patho becomes peso. Now let me explain baptizo a bit. Baptizo, that's not a dental. The actual root of baptizo ends with a delta. That's the real root. We never see that because it's idzo in the present, but we never see that delta, ever. But that's in the etymology of the language of the word. That delta is there. So that delta is dropped and you get a sigma. So that explains why baptizo is an example of ending with a delta. Another variation in form exists with contract verbs. And remember, contract verbs are verbs with a vowel as the final letter of their stem. And examples include agapao, poieo, and plerao. And in the future, that stem vowel lengthens prior to the sigma. So agapao, the alpha and the epsilon of poieo lengthen to an eta, and the omicron of plerao lengthens to an omega. So that's what happens. Next slide explains it nicely. So the lexical form agapao, the verb stem when forming the future is agape, so that alpha lengthens to an eta. You add the sigma and the personal endings and agapeso, I will love. Poieo, the epsilon lengthens to an eta. You add the sigma and add the personal endings. Poieso, I will do. Plerao, the omicron lengthens to an omega. You add the sigma and the personal endings. Pleroso, I will fill, I will fulfill. Finally, here's the future form of emi. So you've learned the present, the imperfect, and now you're learning the future. And when you've learned all these, you've learned all the forms of emi in the indicative mood. So you're good to go. So, esomai, esse, estai, esamatha, esestha, esontai. Now, the previous examples, forms of the future of emi, the present and the imperfect, were hard to memorize because they're a bit irregular. But what are you seeing here? You're seeing an epsilon and a sigma and middle endings. Esomai, esse, estai, esamatha, esestha, esontai. Easy to figure out because You're just seeing an epsilon, a sigma, and middle endings. And future translation, I will be. Let's look at a few examples to end things off. Kai agapeses kurion ton theon su. Ex holes tes cardias su. Kai ex holes tes sukes su. Kai ex holes tes dinoias su. Kai ex holes tes ikkuos su. Here's the future. Okay, so it's future. It's a contract verb, the lengthened eta, second singular. So it's future, indicative active, second singular, and it's used as an imperatival. It's issuing a command. You shall love the Lord your God with your whole heart and your whole life or soul or being and your whole mind and your whole strength. And you shall love the Lord your God with your whole heart, soul, mind, and strength. Mark 12:30. Another future example is the one I think I used earlier in the lecture. Ego baptissa humas hudati autos de baptisse humas en pneumati hegio. Actually, I used this in the pronoun lecture. That's why it's familiar. So, I baptized you. That's past tense. We'll learn about that. That's an aorist. I baptized you with water. He will baptize you with the Holy Spirit. So that's baptizo. Future tense form, third singular form. He will baptize you with the Holy Spirit. This is an example of future passive, and it's from John 14. And the one who loves me will be loved by the Father, and I will love him. So this is a future passive. Theta, eta, sigma, etai. So it's a third singular. And so he will be loved. And the agent doing the loving is expressed by this hupa. He will be loved by my Father. Okay, so that's a future passive. But we also have just a regular future active. Future active here. Agapeso. Okay, and I will love him. Well, that's all for this lecture. You've learned everything that there is to know about the future. And so continue to study your Greek until next time.